Hi, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Expert. I am your host, Larry DeMarco, and we are here with Jim Turner. Please enjoy the interview. If you did not see part one, where Jim discussed the late 1990s and early 2000 economic development of Chester City, please watch it before seeing this episode. Jim, thanks for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
It's my pleasure. It's been fun.
Jim, things changed in after 2009. Can you discuss how events changed after Obama came into office?
Sure. So I mentioned in the previous show that we had been honored to receive the Strong City, Strong Community under the first Obama administration. In the second Obama administration, we got caught up in the whirlwind of change that was happening nationwide. So basically what took place was Obama's in office, he's president, but he's being fought by basically the Republican Party for all intents and purposes. And so everything he tried to put into place seemed to have a challenge that went along with it. And as a result, people came out in droves for the second election, and the local Democratic Party basically put out a brilliant campaign, and it basically said this: if you want to support President Obama, then come out and vote straight Democrat.
And just to give background, when you say we, Jim, you're part of a Republican administration.
I was part of the Republican, exactly.
So people understand that.
Yeah, so you're right. So the that process basically, and I remember that particular day because it was incredible. It was pouring down rain, and people came out in droves. They never stopped from 6 o'clock in the morning all the way through to the end of the election.
And this day that you're talking about, are we talking about the 2011 election?
The 2011, the 2011 election was that particular day. And so what took place right after that is that normally there's a transition that takes place within city governments or local governments or national governments. And in that transition, you spend time talking with the previous administration to get prepared for what's about to take place. In our case, in the city of Chester, those conversations never took place. One of the things that we had done in order to make sure that the transition was smooth, because everything was so fragile in the city of Chester at that particular time, is that Dave Schicchetti, the executive director of the Economic Development Authority, had us put together binders of every project we were working on. So our relationship with the White House, with the Strong City, Strong Communities, was in a binder. Every detail of what was supposed to be implemented was already there. Our programs with the state for the Keystone Opportunity Zone were in the binder. All of our road projects, all the economic development projects we had for the waterfront with the Puccini Polling Group, they were all in a book that allowed the next administration to simply carry those things on so that the government and the city would run smooth.
These projects that you just mentioned, they were discussed in part one of our interview, correct?
That's correct. And so now moving forward, even until this day, those binders were never opened. And so as a result of that, the administration that took over had no idea as to how to keep those projects moving forward. And as you know, when you're working with business people and when you're working with government, they don't want to hear that you're a novice. They don't want to know that that you don't know what you're doing. And so when you can't implement those things, they go away. And so the program that we had with Strong City, Strong Communities with SE2, though they tried to come and work with the new administration in order to implement that, because they were not aware of the challenges that were going on, they weren't able to do that. So our relationship, the help of HUD, the help of the Department of Justice, the help of the other officers that were working with us, basically went to the wayside.
Now let's talk about that. You said they all went to the wayside, but Jim, how do you know that?
I know that because number one, I'm a resident of the city of Chester. I continually to stay involved with everyone who currently still remains at City Hall. And very frankly, I get phone calls every day, sometimes a couple times a day, of people who are asking me, well, what do we do about this or what do we do about that? Realizing that that the administration at that particular time made was an error somewhat in doing what they did, the way that they did it. Again, there's never a problem with trying to change an administration and move people forward. That's done all the time. Where the problem came in was that there was a process that had been in place, and instead of embracing it as a program to help move the city forward, the current administration looked at it as being a Republican plan, and therefore they were not going to implement a Republican plan, as opposed to a plan to simply help the people of the city of Chester. So that's what created the problem.
Jim, you just discussed the transition. The previous administration under Mayor Butler had an attitude of running the city like a business. How did the new administration run the city?
Yeah, so the new administration basically had some challenges, to say the least. Again, our model was to run it like a business. So everything that we did, we looked at from a business standpoint, and we looked at how, making sure you have the right people in place to do what needed to be done.
Particularly personnel, and you discussed that in part one.
Right. So Tom Moore, for instance, was brought in to be the mayor's chief of staff. The purpose of that was because he understood how to run municipal government. He had done it in Pittsburgh. He had done it working with the Santorum administration and a number of other positions that he had held. And so he understood what it took to run a local business. Contrary to that, under the new administration, there were some things that began to take place. I call the T-Mobile plan. If you don't mind, I don't know if I can say T-Mobile, but I just did.
You sure can.
Okay, T-Mobile plan.
But you have to explain what you mean.
So the T-Mobile plan was friends and family. Okay, so the administration went from people like Dave Schicchetti, who had run and had gotten national awards for work that he had done in Marcus Hook and in media and a number of other places. Bill Payne, who was a nationally got national awards for planning and things like that, running and directing the city I'll give you some for instance. The mayor's chief of staff went from Tom Moore to Representative Kirkland's son-in-law, and so who had no background whatsoever in running any kind of administration at all. The planning department became part of Representative Kirkland's state staff as opposed to actual planners. You had the person who was over properties being a friend of his friend of Mayor Kirkland's over Parks and Recreation. So a lot of things that where you need to understand the business of how to run things were now being done by family members and friends of the administration. And so what that did was it basically sent the city in a downward spiral. So for example, when we left office under the Butler administration, December 31st, 2011, we left the city with $5.6 million in their reserve fund. We had paid every one of the bills, including the insurance, pension, and things like that. And we left them with a AAA bond rating. To date, their city is now $28 million in debt. It has no bond rating whatsoever, and the challenges that continue to plague the city are in place because we have lost the focus on really running the city as a business and moving things forward. So the T-Mobile plan, though it may be part of be good for some people, it's not good for running city government.
Again, friends and family plan.
Friends and family friends.
It's actually a term that's being used, that has been used on the show previously.
Yeah.
What other issues has the new administration had since it's taken office?
I think one of the major problems that took place under the new administration was there seemed to be kind of a gridlock in the actual government and how it could function. There were different factions that were kind of rising up, and as a result, we really kept moving in kind of you saw it in the newspapers, you saw all the things that were kind of going back and forth from relative to the police, relative to other things. All those things really began to erode away at the stability of where Chester was going at that particular time.
So for people who weren't following, just be specific. Who did it appear was at odds?
So the at odds, again, you can go back to YouTube or any other newspaper article, Google, anything else. So the big odds were really happening between then Mayor Linder and then State Representative Kirkland. And so as both being Democrats, both being in there, people had allegiance to who they believed they had allegiance to, and it created a polarization of the city at that particular time.
At the time of this filming, November 27th, 2017, there was just local elections. New township governments took place. 2 Democratic county council people were just elected. What advice do you have for local officials, or any new administration that takes office?
Well, I can say from experience that the most important thing that people can do is recognize, first of all, that you're only part of a political party the day that you are running for office. And the reason why I say that is because we really need to understand in running government that government is about all of the people. And so there is no way to separate, if you go down the block, who's Republican or who's Democrat, who's independent, who's part of the Green Party. You have to serve all the people within the community. And that, in order for it to be successful, there needs to be a blending of ideas. And so you can't be locked into just what the party believes in order to be successful. So we need to learn how to work together in order to do that. I would also say that if there is things that are working, don't throw them away just for the fact that another party put them in place. Work through those particular things, because when the people were doing them, more than likely they had the best interests of all the people at heart at that particular time. So you want to be careful with that. So you need to learn how to work together. And then I think the most important thing all the way down the line is remember why we're in office. The purpose of being in office is to make a better community. The challenges that Chester faces right now really are around the people. It is about the 37,000 people that live in the city of Chester. There are, 500,000 people in Delaware County. It's about all of those people. And so everyone has to work together in order to really bring this thing to where it needs to be, because we are in competition. One of the things that I didn't mention before, but I do want to say, is that we have to remember that, and this was part of our philosophy under Mayor Butler and with Dave Schicchetti, is that we are always in competition with other communities. So as much as we think that Delaware County is the place to be, Chester County believes the same thing. Montgomery County and and another county in New Jersey believes the exact same thing. The city of Chester is we know that we see it right now. A lot of the economic development that was taking place in the city of Chester is now happening in other communities around it. Why? Simply because the governments in those communities have figured out how to work with those organizations that are trying to be profitable.
Oh, this applies on a township level too.
Also, it definitely applies on the township level. Hey, Aston, no different from Aston, Brookhaven, Parkside, all of them are all communities that are in competition all the time for residents, for businesses, for support from the state, from support from the federal government. Again, if you look at Chester and Marcus Hook, a perfect example. When Marcus Hook had the crisis with Sunoco, the state came in like gangbusters to help and support them. Well, that was the support that was happening in the city of Chester prior to that. What's the difference? The difference is that at the time that things are needed, that's where people are going to rally to. So when we're looking at where we should be at with local government, how we should work together, we need to recognize that if we are in a seat, we are there because we are to drive the people to success and not for our own gain in any way, shape, or form. So that would probably be the most important thing. And we see it in Chester. I mean, again, Chester is where it is today simply because it has lost focus on where it's supposed to go. And when that gets back in place, whether it be Republican, Democrat, or a combination thereof, it'll go back to being what it was supposed to be and move forward to being a city that people will want to emulate around the world.
We'll leave it there, Jim. Thanks for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you, sir.
We have been here with Jim Turner, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this interview, please don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe, and forward this link to all the friends on your contact list and Facebook friends. We're signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.